Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react.
Hey, welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Thank you for listening today. My name is Sean, and as always, I'm thankful you're here. Kyle, the weather has been beautiful, at least on the West Coast. I imagine it's been a little off and on for you, but I know you've been riding a lot more lately. What's happening in the world of cycling for you?
Yeah, I went for an awesome ride yesterday, and I encountered a situation where I put to use a principle that we talked about in an episode a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
So a couple weeks ago, we talked about this concept of, say you go into a building and there's some stairs, and you need to get something done on the second floor. The thing that we talked about was, say that you need to get some blood drawn.
Oh, yeah.
And so you call the person and you have them come down. So my bike mechanic came over and fixed my bike at my house, which was really, really awesome.
That's amazing.
So I went out on this ride, and I was going right by a brewery. Like, the trail goes right by it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy him a gift card.
Oh.
So I'm on my trike, and of course, I can't walk.
No.
So I can't get inside the brewery. So I sat outside. I called the hostess, and they came outside. I bought the gift certificate, gave him my card. He ran it. He brought me the receipt. And then I went and I delivered it on my trike to REI. He wasn't working that day, so he'll get it when he comes in. But anyway, it was that same concept. I was like, I have to do this. This is awesome.
That's amazing. Where there's a will, there's a way, right?
If the way is not traditional, there still might be a way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. What I like about that story, you could have easily gone back in the car and wheeled in, but that right there would have taken 20 or 30 minutes.
Right.
So the fact that you were able just to do it while you're in the area, and the restaurant was willing to help in a odd manner is huge.
Non-traditional, I would say. Yeah.
Non-traditional. I love it.
Yeah, and really, it's just about thinking about it a little differently. I actually may not have thought about that if we didn't talk about it a couple weeks ago, right? So it's just a matter of like changing that mindset a little bit, and then you can get things done differently than you would have before.
That's true. Yeah. I think about that sort of situation often when I'm riding, because when I'm on the trike, sure, I can walk a little bit, but I am not very good on my feet these days.
Totally.
And if I get hungry or I think, I'm going to stop for a beer or coffee, like, it's really not convenient or conducive. So it's a little barrier every now and then. You gotta plan for that stuff.
Yeah, there are a few things that aren't, figure it out, FIO. Newsworthy from Overjoyed. Recently, International Day for Social Inclusion happened, and the official release of the Overjoyed accessible controller on Microsoft Store was on that day. Some of our listeners may remember a guy named Anthony DiVirgilio. We had him on episode 156, Using Technology to Improve Accessibility. Now, that episode is our 5th most popular episode of all time. So thank you, Anthony, for that. Super cool. We also had Anthony on a panel that we did, I believe, for Jet Foundation. He has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, And so he invented this software with some friends, turns mouse movements into video game controller inputs. And you can even use it with an eye movement tracker. Yeah. So you can play video games with lots of different disabilities. So super cool. Overjoyed just launched their software, so anyone can go to our website, check out the link, and you can download the software. You can encourage others to do so as well, and there are a few other actions you can take as well. But the bottom line is we're big fans of Anthony, and he and Overjoyed are definitely newsworthy.
Kyle, something that we talked about recently inspired a train of thought that is bringing up today's conversation, and it has to do with the word tenacious or tenacity. You know, we talked recently about your friend exploring a new opportunity or thinking about a new job. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, over the years, and I'm sure you have too, there have been times where we've been challenged in our tenaciousness or our tenacity. So I wanted to highlight that word for just a few minutes, perhaps.
Yeah.
I looked up the word in Webster's, and according to Webster's.com, tenacious is persistent in maintaining, adhering to, or seeking something valued or desired. And we've talked about it quite a bit. You know, if it's important to you, figure it out, right? If it's something that you want to do and achieve and pursue, then nothing should hold you back. And although somewhat related to conversations we've had in the past, this word sticks out to me because when I hear it or think about it, I picture a dog and a bone, like a pit bull, right? Or a Rottweiler who's just laser focused, and maybe detrimentally so or unfortunately so, forgets everything in the peripheral and just goes for that toy or that bone or whatever it may be and finds a way to get it or to get after it. And although I think there's a lesson to be learned in both ways, you know, being laser focused but also not losing sight a peripheral, the tenacity part of being laser focused is something that sticks out to me a lot and has been on my brain over the last couple of weeks since we talked about your friend contemplating a career move.
To me, what sticks out is something animalistic like you were talking about. And for me, it's a lion for some reason, where maybe a lion feels threatened or they feel like their cubs are threatened. And their tenacity kicks on and nothing matters except protecting or like eliminating the threat. In this description from Webster, the word persistent stands out to me because I was thinking of it in the moment. When that threat comes or when the chips are down, you need to perform and you need to be tenacious and go after the goal or eliminate the threat. But this definition starts with the word persistent. And I think that's important. It's important to me anyway, because it says that tenacity is a thing that happens on a daily basis, not just when the chips are down, but all the time seeking what you're after.
Sure. It's about continuing to build on what you've already started. Mm-hmm. Whether it's easy or it's hard. When push comes to shove, we can all find the energy and the gumption to put up a fight.
Yeah.
You know, to advocate for ourselves, especially in the context of disability. I just started questioning as you were talking, on the days where it's easy, do we still continue with that level of persistence? Or do we kind of let ourselves off the hook because there's nothing to push back on? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I think it requires that we get really clear about what we want, what that thing is that we're seeking, because in the moment, it can be easy to find that thing when all other things fade away. But then, like you're saying, on the everyday, it's a little more hard to find that focus unless you're clear about it ahead of time, right?
And you probably need to keep that in front of you.
Yeah.
That as in the goal or the ultimate, what you're going after. There's this concept and theory, I forget what it's called, so don't judge. Something to the effect of productive procrastination. I know on a weekly basis I need to edit an episode, or I need to work on a podcast or work on a speech or whatever, some of those bigger training for a bike ride. Some of that big stuff, that's always there. But
Yeah.
in the moment, I might see, oh shoot, I need to vacuum. So there's some productivity, but it's probably not the most important or the most valuable use of 20 minutes. Whereas I could vacuum any day. Sometimes I think, no, I need to vacuum right now. And have you ever heard of the Huberman podcast or Huberman project? I'm forgetting the exact name of it right now, but have we talked about this before?
I think you've mentioned it, but
all right.
Yeah.
He's a neuroscientist, and he's got a podcast that's huge, and his episodes are, 3 and 4 hours long. So I've only listened to a few in bits and pieces, but so much of what they talk about really makes sense. And there's always this constant battle of trying to balance, everything we talk about and valuing some of the words we use, such as tenacity and persistence and going after what you want. But also there's this constant questioning of, is this the most valuable use of my time or energy or whatever it may be? So that was probably a bit of a sidetrack rant, but I guess all that to say, Andrew Huberman is worth a follow and a read and a listen from time to time, if not always.
I think about this concept that you're talking about all the time when an email comes in and you're like, I think I should probably answer this right now and give up everything else that I'm doing. I'll get back to that later. And then that happens 3 times, and all of a sudden you haven't done anything on your list, right?
Yeah.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
It eats up a whole day or a whole amount of time, and I'm the worst at it.
Yeah, I've gotten better lately at using the mark as unread options in both my email and my text. I don't feel that so much in email. I don't feel obligated to respond right away. But I do feel that in a text, especially if it's a friend or a loved one. It's like, I don't want them to feel ignored and I want to give them energy. But in the moment, maybe I'm at the gym and it'll slow me down, or I'm in the middle of editing or even working. It's like, okay, I can't really engage in a conversation right now.
Totally.
So I've gotten better at marking it unread so that I don't lose it or forget about it, because that happens too often. I read it and think, oh, that'll be good to talk about later. Yeah. And then I never get back to them. So maybe use that more and more. Unread.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Or, I could respond to this, but I need to talk to a coworker, or I need to talk to Sean first. And then all of a sudden it's 3 days before we talk or whatever, right? This relates to, just getting distracted from what we really want and adhering to or seeking something valued or desired, like that definition says. And maybe there's not an answer, but it's something that we need to be persistent about. And like you said, keep those things in front of you so you are always working towards what you really want in some respect.
The word discipline has come to mind as you talk, because
Gosh.
there's going to be days where you can invest 2 hours into a project, and there are going to be days where you don't have 2 hours. But the discipline of contributing what you can, when you can, is going to help make sure that in 3, 4, 5 months or years, you're achieving what you set out to do. So even though I can't, we've talked briefly, and some people know we get a big bike ride coming up in a few months. Well, I can't ride every day. I can go to the gym and ride this stationary daily, if not, 5 days a week. But getting out on a bike trail, that's a little harder for me. But if I can get out for an hour, even once a week, that alone is going to help pay off more so than a stationary bike. Both are helpful, but it's about staying disciplined in the variety and the depth, and remaining consistent. It's not about always giving it 2 hours or 6 hours. It's about keeping your body in that rhythm of contributing a little bit or stretching a little bit on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think that's true. And then you're seeking those opportunities to be like, oh, I can do a 3-hour ride today.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you're maintaining and staying focused on what we need to get done. Yeah.
And that's why I say keep it in front of you, or, write it down on the bathroom mirror or something. Because at least for me, there are too many distractions that will totally derail me on a regular basis. Because I want to dust, or I want to vacuum, or I need to clean my car, or it's bothering me that my clothes aren't folded. Like, all that's important, but I don't know if it's more important than training for a big bike ride, or whatever the thought might be. It doesn't have to be a bike ride.
Yeah, there's a constant weighing of priorities and deciding where to spend your time. We've all had that situation where an idea occurs to us or pops in, and we cannot stop thinking about it. And maybe it becomes an obsession. Recognizing those situations where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't stop thinking about this. I think this is something I really want. And then prioritizing those things to the top of the list when all the other little things come in.
Yep, that's true. It's a valuable principle for everybody in every walk of life. But another thing that challenges me specifically in the disability space, we're automatically, I think, perceived by many as being weaker or slower or less able or disadvantaged, and to an extent, sure, we are less abled. And I'm definitely slower than most. But when it comes to all of these things, and even this podcast, to me, being tenacious is about knowing what you want and working through the barriers and the misperceptions and the challenges so that you can still achieve whatever it is you're chasing and going after. I think that's what's going to allow people to see that you're, all the buzzwords, committed, disciplined, and tenacious in your pursuit.
If we're clear about what we want and we can make it happen despite our disability, I think we prove, like you said, to the world what we're all about, but also we prove to ourselves what we're about, and we can build on that in the future.
Yeah.
If we're clear about what we want and we achieve it, holy cow, does that give us confidence to build to something in the future again?
Yeah. Kyle, I'm going to put you on the spot. Got a hard question for you.
Okay.
I don't know how I will answer this. I'll think about it while you're talking.
Thanks.
I imagine at some point, every now and then, we're faced with the decision to stop. to give up, or, and I hate that phrase, but to change course, if you will.
Right.
So how do you know when to let go or when to change course?
Dang, that's a tough one, man. It reminds me of a lot of things. Most of us have had relationships, romantic relationships, that we have decided to end for one reason or another. In those situations, I weigh the value versus the risk or the cost. At some level, it's a simple equation. You've got to make the judgment with the information you have at the time. We were talking about a couple of weeks ago, you saw this clip sort of about regret and trying to figure out, is this going to be good or is that? And there's no way to tell sometimes. If it's a really hard decision, either one is awesome. And I'm going to do what I can either way. So that's a little bit how I approach it.
I think he lost me at some point, but that's okay. We'll see how it sounds. I will say, answer that question myself. Although I wouldn't put it in the context of relationship. I think it ties back to knowing what the ultimate goals are. And asking yourself, very similar to what you said, is this going to help me get to where I want to be? Is that meal or that choice of eating out, is it going to help me get to the point of saving the way I want? There are times where I think skipping the gym is very important. If I'm tired or my back was pretty beat up not too long ago. So in those moments, that's like, okay, I'm gonna not work out today, or at least not work out the way I normally do, because this injury needs to heal. But if I thought I must be tenacious, consistent, and disciplined to work out every day and do the same workout, then that would probably keep me from getting to where I want to be, because that's only going to exacerbate the injury. It's never going to get better. But actually stepping back for a few days, letting my body heal, and then getting back to it, is ultimately going to help me get to where I want to be in a faster way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it does make sense. But I also think that we're thinking of two different things. Because in a relationship, most of the time, you make a decision forever. But in the gym, you're like, oh, I won't go today, but I can go back tomorrow. I can let my back heal, and I can continue on towards my goal at the next opportunity. But there are some decisions in life where you have to make a decision that lasts either forever or it at least has a little more weight than, eating one cookie or skipping the gym one day or whatever.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm just thinking, if I'm involved with somebody and I step out of the relationship kind of, third party, and I know, okay, I want to do X, Y, and Z before I die. I want to achieve A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
Is that person making me better? Is that person helping me get to that point? Not in a sense of, are they giving everything they got to help me, but are we a good pair? Are we sharpening each other? Are we making each other better? And ultimately, if the answer is yes, then why would you end the relationship? If the answer is no, then absolutely end the relationship. I don't know if that makes things hard or not.
Yeah. No,
Or if it's not that easy. I think it's not that easy because of the emotional attachment.
Yeah.
Which is something you just gotta work out.
We've found ourselves once again in a Kyle Bryant therapy session.
There was about a year ago, I was talking to somebody and, we matched online. We would talk on the phone probably every night. And this went on for a few months. And then we met for the first time in person, and we spent a couple days together. Well, it was right after we met that I realized that this is not the person for me. And although that was a hard conversation to have and a hard line to draw and keep, I knew that 20 years from now, or 40 years from now, or shoot, even 5 years from now, this person wasn't going to be a trampoline for me, and I wasn't going to be a trampoline for them. So I don't say that in a self-serving manner, but I felt ultimately, although we get along great and there was some attraction both ways, it was ultimately the end result isn't going to be ideal for either one of us. And that was a one-sided point of view. But it was very important for me to voice that point of view, because I knew 5 years from now, this was not going to be the relationship that was important to me.
Right.
I guess ultimately I shared that because to me, I found it valuable to end those emotional ties sooner than later, because later only makes it worse. And also, lesson learned for the record, I will never do that again. It's one thing to connect and vibe over the internet, pictures, and even maybe some phone calls, but you never know what the energy is like until you're face to face. So for me, I'm okay with not being able to meet face to face for a couple months, but you won't get me on the phone every night to have a conversation. Not prolonged anyway. Quick hi, maybe, but a 20, 30, 40-minute conversation of what's going on in my life is not to be rude, none of your business until I know that there's...
that it's worth spending time. Yeah.
Exactly. That there's going to be value in the energy spent.
I agree. So, Sean, how does all of this relate back to tenacity?
Biggest thing for me is knowing what you want.
Yeah.
And being laser focused. Not necessarily at the expense of others, but the more upfront you are with yourself and with those that you choose to allow to be close to you, the more realistic the expectations are on you and on them and from you and from them. And that level of commitment to yourself is going to help you and your circle of friends and loved ones be tenacious in the pursuit of everything important to you. So with the right people, they're going to help you achieve. They're going to praise that level of tenacity.
I couldn't have said it better, and I think that's a pretty good wrap up. All right, Sean, it's time for thank you notes. Both of us realize the value of gratitude. Who do you have to thank today?
I'm saying thank you to a product today. The Vertiball, a portable, easy-to-use wall-mount massage ball or roller. I've got 2 different styles. At the end of the year, I think I mentioned this already, but had some leftover FSA money, flexible spending. And I got on the FSA store to try to use up a little bit of the money I had left over, and I saw one of these. And I've always seen them advertised on Instagram and Facebook, and I've always thought, I want one, but I never made it a thing. Well, I had a little bit of money that could only be spent in that category of health stuff, and I said, I'm going to get one. Changed my life. I've got 2, and I use them regularly. In fact, you saw one when I travel. I take one with me. I took it on the cruise, took it to your house. Easy to use, very portable. And really, depending on your ability and balance and whatnot, it can be a struggle. But generally, if I brace myself near something I can hang on to, I can really utilize that Vertiball to to work out some kinks. So I love it, and I've enjoyed the investment.
Nice. So I'm wondering if you would have ordered that from an Instagram ad, do you think it would be the same quality as what you got from the FSA store?
You know, it's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer yet. I think yes, ultimately.
Yeah.
You know, I've been a sucker for advertisements when it comes to accessories, jewelry, you know, a wristband or a bracelet, a shirt here and there, etc.
Yeah.
Well, there was one recent advertisement that always popped up. It was like a back posture thing, and I feel like I need one. I want one. So I saw it a lot, and I'm like, that looks really interesting. But instead of going through the Instagram one, I went to Amazon and I ordered some other no-name brand, and a complete waste of money. That thing was garbage. So I feel like I trust Instagram maybe more than Amazon. I've had experiences both ways, but ultimately I do think most of the advertisers that I come across are probably decent.
I get served complete junk in my Instagram feed. I've ordered a couple things before, and they've taken like a month and a half to get here. And then when I do get them, they're just complete trash. One of them was a sweatshirt. It was just dumb. And the other one was a neck massager. And you put it on, and it just delivers little electric shocks. And it actually kind of hurt. And it did not massage.
Oh, bummer. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I can't think of anything on Instagram that I've been roped into that I regret. Of course, it's only been maybe 4 or 5 items, but so far, so good. What about you? Who's your thank you note going to?
I want to thank somebody I mentioned earlier in the episode, my bike mechanic, James. He works at REI. The bike shop there is super awesome. But this time, James came over to my house. I have my cycling trainer set up on a smart trainer, and it's really heavy. And it's basically impossible to get it into my van and take it in. So he came out to service it. He spent like an hour at my house on a Saturday on his own time. Not only did he fix what I needed done, but we just hung out and talked about cycling for an hour. And so anyway, just so much gratitude for that.
How does that even come up?
Yeah, I've been there a lot in the last 3 years, and I'll spend 2 hours in the store, and James and I will just be talking about the best uses for this and that in Montana and Idaho and up Mount Washington and these different trips. And so we just developed a relationship. I did buy my trainer at REI, and it's really heavy. So I asked him, like, can you come help me set it up in my bedroom? And that's kind of what started it, is he came that time, and then I called him up, and I was like, I think I need a little help again, so.
Cool. Can't say enough thank yous to people like James. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this conversation. We appreciate you listening every single week. Be sure to check out our show notes for links to some of the things we talked about today. If you're enjoying the show, please like it and subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share it with a friend. Of course, you can always leave a review while you're on an app. Just click those stars and let the world know what you think. We look forward to talking with you again next week. Until then, keep living with urgency.
Thank you for listening to Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to stay connected.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player.